Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of the Oh No 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 podcast. You might have had us come through your push notifications there. If you're subscribed and you've liked, I'm glad to see that you've not dismissed us as quickly as Leon King's red card appeal got chucked out by the SFA during the week. But we're back for a derby preview. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir. And firstly joined by Duncan Cameron. How are you getting on, Duncan?
I'm really good, mate. Really good, thank you. Yes. Enjoyed my football at the weekend, enjoyed my week after the football so far, and looking forward to more football on Friday.
We've also got Alan Douglas-Munn as well. How are you getting on, Alan?
Yeah, really good, mate. Yeah, like Duncan, thoroughly enjoyed a game on Saturday where it was just really comfortable. It didn't feel like there was any jeopardy at any point, and it was really nice. Set up the weekend nicely, and yeah, also having a good week and properly really looking forward to Friday. It's just got a big game feel to it now, I think. Just so, yeah, bring it on.
And rounding us off this evening, we've also got Blair Hopcroft. How are you getting on, Blair?
Yeah, good, mate. I echo all of that. It's been a good weekend. I'm looking forward to the derby now. Marching on.
Well, we'll go back to yourself, Alan. You sort of touched on it before. What were your sort of thoughts on the game last weekend? Obviously, you mentioned it was in relative comfort given the sort of circumstances the game was played out. But what did you make of the display overall?
Just really composed and professional. Like, it would have been... It's hard to see how things would have gone if Leon King hadn't thought, got himself confused and thought he was at Murrayfield for a while. But after that, they just didn't really... They didn't try anything. We were just in complete control of the game. Telfer and Adamson in the midfield were outstanding. I mean, I put in our group chat that it looked like they've been playing together for years, and you would never have thought they'd only played just over, up to that point, half a game together or whatever it was. That they seem to understand where each other need to be, and I think a lot of it comes down to having midfielders in their natural positions. So, they were all doing the role that they like to do, and with Kai in front of them, I thought he had another outstanding game. I see Dougie Emery's jumping on my bandwagon and touting him for under 21s now as well. So, but yeah, I thought we just looked really comfortable. It felt like we had other gears we could have gone to if we'd needed to, but we didn't need to. And all the time, kind of having that little bit of wariness of Ayr pretty quick in attack. Ross Taylor's got a bit of pace about him, so didn't go committing too many men forward when you don't need to. And I just thought, really, really good performance. And to have that kind of level of player to come off the bench, when you go, you only have to go back like a week, 2 weeks, and you're looking at our bench going, if it's not going our way, we've got nothing there to change it. Whereas, we had the luxury of bringing the club captain off the bench, and Dylan, the guy who's been our best player for probably the last 3 years off the bench, and a guy who's just signed from a Premiership team. These are the guys who are just... What a difference a couple of weeks makes. It was just brilliant. There's so many positives to take from that game. The only... I'm no one who's going to get too hung up on it might not have been that easy if they'd had 11 men on the park. We don't know. So there's no point in speculating about it. I'm not going to take that, let that take anything away from the performance. I thought we were really, really good.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary. So we'll turn our attention on to Friday evening now. Duncan, just going to start with you. Quite a broad question this. Dunfermline, they progressed through their League Cup group, but then they got papped out by ex-Raith Rovers winger Richard Chin out of the League Cup. And then, of course, it's been a couple of draws and a loss in the league so far out of their 3 games. What have you made of their start to the season?
I think they're suffering under the weight of expectation more than anything else. Because actually, I don't know what the opposite of pound for pound is. Pound for pound, they're doing terribly. There's so many pounds. But on the kind of level, I think they've broadly been fine, in the sense that it sounded like they played well in spells against Livingston. It kind of stung at the end of both halves. Yes, they get beat by Ross County, but they also beat St Mirren. So, you can take that either way. Drew with Ayr United, again, I think by all reports, they were probably the better side by a fair margin in that one, but just couldn't get it over the line. If that was just, if they were in the same kind of blob as us, Cali Thistle, Ayr United, I don't think anybody would be kind of up in arms. It really is the case that when you look at the squad that they've put together, when you look at how they finished last season, undeniably, they have to go and challenge for the title this season. There's no getting away from that, and there's no that has to be the aim for Neil Lennon, and it's through that lens that playing quite well but only having 2 or 3 points isn't good enough. But it's also very, very, very early, and I think that's the thing that this game has the potential to be quite impactful for Dunfermline, but only if they get beat. Because I think if they win, actually they're just fine again. And it's like, that was a tricky start, but then you've won a derby and you're just back in amongst the middle of the league again, and you're only 4 games in. So it's totally fine. It's what a defeat then looks like. And they'd still only be 4 games into the season. I don't think by any means at all it puts them out of a title challenge. But it suddenly makes everybody around them very, very grumpy. And then you're into the next game. Probably does start to become a must-win. So, yeah, very difficult to know what to make of them. I think also, I suspect we might, several times over the course of this episode, mention the size of the squad and the amount of money they've clearly spent. There's no, you don't have to be at the wind-up to point that out. That also, though, makes them quite a difficult team to assess and quite a difficult team to predict. Because more so than really anybody other than Livingston, they can look like a very different side from week to week. They've got the bodies to do that. So, yeah, very, very difficult to assess.
So, Blair, just to come to yourself, I mean, there's been a few notable departures for Dunfermline in the summer. They lost 2 out of the 3 centre-backs that they tended to use. So, Jeremiah Chillico and Mullen, he ended up, I think it was Wigan that he went off to. Kieran and Gwenya was down to Rotherham. Matty Todd's moved up to get consistent coverage from the Courier up at St Johnstone. Sorry, I cannot help but dig out Eric Nicholson at any opportunity. And Chris Hamilton, probably the other sort of most familiar face out of that team, moved to Ross County. Do you think that's been a bit of an issue for Neil Lennon sort of in the early stage of this season, just having to navigate losing so many sort of defensive-minded players, having to rebuild that from the back and try to get that familiarity re-established?
Maybe, I suppose I never really thought of it that way. I'd kind of look at it the other way in the sense of just how many they've brought in. And that can be equally difficult to manage, trying to get a balanced side and trying to build relationships and get a bit of form and stuff can be really challenging when you've got, I think they're up to 28 in the squad. Like that's a difficult number to manage. Chillico and Mullen's the obvious one. Everybody raved about him. I personally was never sold. He always struck me as one of those players, and we've spoken about it before, that he was big, he was tall, and he had funny hair, and so he stands out. And then everybody watches him and everybody notices him. And he was fine. Like, I'm not convinced he was fantastic. But they've lost, and Chris Hamilton especially, and probably in Gwenya to an extent, they've lost a couple of players that had a bit of championship experience and boys that have kind of played in this league. So we spoke after the dispensing of Ayr United about the squad and how the Rovers squad is quite small, but there's a lot of experience in it, and there's a real kind of flavour to that squad that is championship experience. And the Pars have gone in a completely different direction. And for me, it's a massive gamble, because what they've got is a squad full of boys you've never heard of. Some of them have got relatively decent pedigree, or they've got flashes in their youth that they've played at a certain level, or whatever it happens to be. But it's like this model of, buy to sell effectively is the kind of format that they seem to be kind of going with. You've run a bit of a risk. They've replaced Chillico Mullen and Kieran Ngwenya with a young lad down on loan from Dundee United, who, I mean, from what I've heard, seems to be pretty decent. That is it, Cleel Harding or something. He's one of the double barrel crew.
He ended up at Airdrie last season, but I don't know if he actually ever played for them, because they had that sort of cooperation agreement, which just never really.
He was on their co-op list, but I'm pretty sure never so much as attended a training session. I think Airdrie were very unhappy with their cooperation agreement. They ended up with Owen Sturton turned up for like the last 3 games of the season, but they had, I think, 3 players on the list effectively all season, and basically didn't see them. I'm sure Cleel Harding just never actually had to even so much as get the bus there.
Yeah.
But as you say, that's because he was in and around a Premiership squad last season.
Oh, that's it. But that's the thing. I think they're a really hard team to figure out. It is really early in the season, and so you can put a lot of their kind of early form down to that. A lot of new boys coming in. They're trying a new shape. They're doing whatever they're doing, and boys that need to bed into the level and understand the league and stuff. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about the idea that losing those players in that experience was the reason for it. It possibly is, but I'm kind of more inclined to go with the sheer volume of boys they're bringing in. I actually thought we were going to have a similar problem, I have to say, because we've had quite a decent turnover as well. But I think the difference is that we've brought in a load of players that have played at this level, and so they know the role, they know the job, they know the league, which just makes that a lot bit easier.
Know the manager as well.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I think that's a big factor for a good few of them as well.
Yeah, big time.
Alan, I'll just come back to yourself next. I mean, probably if you're looking at the signings that Dunfermline have made, I think there's 2 sort of eye-catching ones in particular that are Ollie Shaw. I mean, 27 goals in the 46 games last season for Hamilton, but it's safe to say he's had a bit of how shall we say this politely, enigmatic start to his Dunfermline career. He's previously worked with Neil Lennon before. I mean, is that a bit of a surprise given the form that he was in last season? That by the accounts of what you've read from sort of Dunfermline fans and things like that, seems to be taking a little bit of flack on their side. But also as well, coming in from sort of Lanarkshire, you've also got the returning figure in Aston Knoxborough. It's maybe more of a statement of intent side. And what did you make of those 2 moves?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Oxford, that was an absolute no-brainer for them. I mean, considering the other options they had at their disposal, to bring in a keeper of that quality, it was a really straightforward decision for them. He didn't look like he was going to be getting in about the Motherwell team, so it was probably a pretty decent, pretty easy choice for him as well. And he absolutely does make them better at the back and harder to score against than old Poppadom wrists Dennis Mehmet did, or I can't remember who else. They've got the Terrell.
Billy Terrell.
He wasn't really up to much either.
All the stars.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was that was a very good bit of business from them. Really annoying, actually, because I quite like Dunfermline having crap goalies. That's something that should continue. Ollie Shaw, on the face of it, looks like a really sensible bit of business. I've always found him to be a funny kind of player because he's a guy who never actually looks up to much, but seems to score goals. And I don't know if he just kind of pads his stats against Dross or whatever. But he just funny because he's a player who fails the eye test. That's something we like to talk about on this podcast. Is he doesn't look much when you see him, but he just gets goals, or he was getting goals. He's not this season, and long may that continue. because as you said, I've not seen any of Dunfermline at all. I've not even really watched any of their highlights. But, Dunfermline Twitter is a really, really fun place to be when they don't win games, because the fans let them know about it. And Ollie Shaw's a name that you see coming up quite a lot in there, and not in a good way. It's. I don't know if it's surprising or not. I mean, he's got goals in him, and I'm sure he'll still score a few this season if they keep giving him game time. But hopefully just not on Friday.
So, Duncan, I'm going to come to you next. Now, you specifically said that you'd not looked too much into Dunfermline signings when you
Thank you
came
for
there. So
tidying
naturally,
that up.
I'm going to bring up the names of. Now, I might be incorrect with my pronunciations here.
Good luck with this.
One of them's called
Milican
Allan.
Adams, who has signed from the third tier of the Czech Republic. Alan Oyerworth, who is a Ugandan internationalist, I believe, who's came in from the reserves of New England Revolution. A bit closer to home, you've also got Cian Corbally from Ballymena. I mean, what do you make of Dunfermline in terms of... They were similar last year in that you saw guys like Abdullahi and Alfonso Mad come in. Jefferson Cáceres, maybe to a lesser extent. Obviously, there's a bit in the background about him with Sheffield United. What do you make of the signing strategy? Because, it sort of really looks like high risk, high reward there in terms of that you're asking lads to come into Scotland, adapt to the Scottish game, and you really don't know too much in terms of, aside, I'm guessing, from the data that's getting pulled for you as to what's coming through. What do you make of that in terms of the Scottish Championship as a sort of a process?
Well, I tell you my overriding reaction, first of all, is jealousy.
Fair.
Before they've kicked a ball, at the very least, right? Because obviously, I hope they're all horrendous, and my jealousy will evaporate immediately. But there's no getting away from the fact that signing players from New England Revolution, possibly, at one of these made-up American teams. We're back to the Tallahassee Fuddruckers and all these other mobs. And I don't think you took a punt on the name of the side that Milican Adams came from. Was it Dynamo Sesk Budajevice? Possibly.
I'm not sure if you've just got to find a spare tin of lager down the back of you.
Just playing syllable bingo at this point. But I'd say there's no getting away from the fact that's more interesting than signing players from Forfar Athletic or signing players from St Mirren. I tried to pick two teams that I don't think we've signed anybody from there, because I'm not picking on any Rovers players in particular. That's more fun. In the same way that signing John Fredrickson is more fun than signing Conor McBride. And after a wee while, you're like, both these guys are absolutely no use at all. But at least one of them was really tall and foreign. And so, obviously, what matters most is how good they are at football. And by the time a couple of games have gone by, you would rather have a guy who is good and that you sign from Forfar and who comes from Raith than a Ugandan guy who came from America. Like, if he's going to score 5 more goals, you take the boring guy. But, as I say, especially like in the summer, when what you want is something to look forward to, it's undeniably better to be signing just random punters from across the globe. But to be slightly more kind of grounded in it, I think you said it yourself. It's high risk, high reward. I think it's a very, very stark contrast. Probably the starkest contrast is with us. It's with the business that Dougie Imrie did this summer, where the biggest common factor in all of our signings is that they are a known quantity. It's guys he's worked with before. It's guys who've been in this division for years. Like, there's no surprises. What we are going to get from our summer business is broadly what we expect to get, because you can see there's bundles and bundles of evidence for everybody that we've brought in, and you can see the attraction in that as a manager as well. Especially, and I think this is the key thing, if you've got a small squad, because if you're only going to have, I mean, how many guys did we have? 18 players, I think, that we had on Saturday. We left 2 spaces on the bench, and we spoke about this. All 18 players. 16 of them have at least a season of Championship football under their belt already. And then the other 2, one is John Robertson, who's in League 2, totally a known quantity. And the other was Callum Adamson, who was in League 1 last season and who is sort of rightfully also stepping up. If you've only got 18 bodies, you can't really take a punt on a random person who's been recommended to you by a well-connected agent who plays in an entirely different football ecosystem that's just not comparable. I mean, even signing guys from England, you've at least got a body of evidence where you can go, right, well, we signed Richard Chin from Tier 5. This guy also plays at Tier 5. They must be roughly the same. Sign a guy who plays for New England. I've forgotten again. New England Revolution.
But not even the first team.
Yeah. No, exactly. And this is the thing. Like, you've just got no. There's no frame of reference. You don't have 20 other guys who played at that level who've done really well in the Scottish Championship recently. It seems like Falkirk are trying to sign all of them on loan, to be fair. So this time next year, you might have an idea.
Maybe he's had. Yeah, I was going to say maybe he's had run-ins with Christopher Cup of Greenock Morton or Cups.
Just
Cups.
A real American football player's name. Chris Cups. Sure, if you want. So I think that's the thing is, if you've got a bigger squad, and the money's there, clearly, if you've got the money to spend on a bigger squad, then it makes sense to have some of these kind of bigger swings in that squad. Because this is also where you can make money. So I think Allan Oyerworth, they've got a what they call it, it's not an obligation to buy, an option to buy. So there's a preset price there. So there's every chance that by this time next year, they've already signed him permanently and sold him on, because he's done so well that his market value is above what they've locked in it. That's obviously what they'll be hoping happens. And that's not a dynamic we've currently got available to us because of the squad that we've built. But it's also, you have the Jefferson Caceres dynamic as well, which is that you sign a guy who hasn't played at the level, hasn't played in the country before, I think in his case doesn't speak the language, and then ultimately can't adapt, and you have to let them go for nothing. And again, if halfway through this season we have to let somebody go for free because they're struggling with the language, that's a big issue for us. Not pointing the fingers at who that might be. It's less of an issue if you've got 24 other guys who can step in. So
it is more of an issue if you've got Benny taking training, though, to be fair.
So as I say, it's like the proof will be in the pudding. By January, we'll know if any of these guys are any use. And honestly, looking at the squad they've got, you probably only need 1 or 2 of these big swings to be slightly better than the level to really elevate the team. Because we saw last season, like, they were fine last season, but they finished 4th. I think Scottish Cup run, obviously, you deserve a huge amount of credit for that. And I'm not trying to negate that at all. I think it did paper over the cracks of their league season a little bit. Like, they snuck into 4th place with better than the 4th biggest budget in the division. But you probably only need a couple of guys to do slightly better than that, and then have replacements that are broadly where you were, as Blair talked about.
I do get where you're coming from. I mean, I think, like, in the end, you look at the teams that were above them, I mean, they were quite comfortably clear in terms of the fourth place. I get that's not what you're meaning, but they were not laying a glove in terms of like St Johnstone, Partick, and even Arbroath.
Yeah.
Like there was still a reasonable distance between them and Arbroath. It's just, yeah, with them, I'm quite keen to see how it pans out. Of course, as I always am with any team at this level. I just, in terms of the strategy, you saw that guys like Ahmad and Abdullah last season came in and they did look really, really strong. But yeah, just as to, because there was a few, even across the piece, where like, especially at the start of their time, it felt like they were taking punts for the sake of taking punts. This was more when we're talking about when Tidser was in charge, and they had that sort of January period there, and then it just never really happened for them in terms of moving forward. I mean, I guess I suppose with Neil Lennon, they're probably going to get a bit more, I don't know, bang for their buck, I think, as a manager, Blair.
Maybe. No, I was going to say that I was just, you're talking about Michael Tidser, I was just reminiscing. That was fun.
Good times.
I get totally, 6
weeks. It's the total unknown thing. I know they've got data, and times have moved on, and maybe actually that's exactly all this is. They've got boys who fit a certain shape on a graph, and that's what they're looking for. And fair play. I mean, there are teams that make it work, but for every Nacho Novo, there's a Juan Guerrero. Do you know what I mean? There's absolute dross out there that'll come in because agents can sell them and they'll get them through the door. And Scottish football is littered with them. Like, and it just, I don't know, like it feels, and maybe jealousy is the right word, Duncan, actually, because you're probably right, but it just feels a bit soulless. Like, it's like Champ Man. We're just signing boys based on stats, not on, I know they're good and they can do a job here. It's, he's got 17 for shooting. Get him in the door. Like,
well, like we've talked about this before with Premier League 2, stupid name, the reserves down south, where you've got what is effectively an under-23s team. And if you're the academy manager at one of those under-23 teams, there's like 4 guys that you mention when you talk to the first team manager. And then next to those 4 guys, there's 7 boys in any starting 11. There's probably another 10 guys that go to training that they've got absolutely no chance. And then what happens is they get to 22, 23, they get released, and you have this kind of natural settling of those 15 guys that get released. Some of them go to the Championship, some of them go to League One, some of them come to Scotland and hang about the Championship up here.
David floating about in Ukraine now.
Yeah, they disappear off to active war zones and all sorts. And it's the same, I assume, in American league systems as well. Like, so you just have this thing where you get guys who kind of trade on where they've been. But then, by the same token, you absolutely also have guys who come through elite academies and go on to have really good careers. It's just that thing of there's no way of knowing. And that's the thing. The big thing, I think, is that the has played reserve football isn't a badge of quality. Like, that's the thing, is that is effectively no indicator whatsoever. I know we're getting off topic slightly, but the boy that Morton signed on loan yesterday, is it Huddersfield he's come from?
Yeah, and he put out in like the second tier of Qatar, I think.
Exactly, because you see Huddersfield, I mean, have been in the Premier League, I think, in the last 5 years. So you see academy player at Huddersfield. That's a big football club. They'll have a decent academy. And he's gone to Morton. You think, that could be a good signing for a team that's got no money. That could be decent. Where was he last season? Well, he was playing first team football in the second division in Qatar. And you think, right, that's not necessarily the great... I'm not an expert on Qatari football, certainly not lower league, but you can't imagine that's the greatest quality of football. And you just think, that, as I say, so that whole thing about guys who've are coming directly from reserve football, I just think is such a huge kind of bandwidth that they could be anything.
Ultimately, we're not in a position to take those kind of gambles, which is why we've gone for the signings that, when they happen, are underwhelming. Nobody was jumping about going, we've signed Zach Delaney, we're bringing Ross Millen back. Well, maybe for, non-football reasons, we'd be happy with bringing Ross Millen back. But you know what? The ones that have actually gone in and played minutes this season have actually come in and done well. They've shown what that experience of playing championship football gives them. They're showing, again, I suppose, what we thought we were getting with Dougie Emery as well, and that is his ability to get the best out of players who've maybe not had the best of time somewhere else. It's when you, as you kind of mentioned already, when you are working with the budget we are and the squad size we are, you kind of need to go with known quantities. And it's no exciting. It's not getting folk kind of dancing about in front of their phones when they see it coming through on Twitter. But it's safe, and it, touch wood, it seems to be paying off for us so far.
Yeah, I think it's just I feel like I use this phrase every week on a podcast, horses for courses. It's just like you can only really stick in our position to what we know and what we do. And I think that it's good in that aspect because it means that we're probably not in direct competition for many players with Dunfermline. I think the only one that I really saw that potentially got touted for them that we've ended up getting was Callum Adamson. And that's a loan deal because they're looking elsewhere, and again, it's finances behind that and how that works. That's another point, but again, different discussion for a different day. And if they're happy to take that risk and they want to go down that route, because I think they'll probably see, like, if it works and you find someone that's a wonder kid and you sell them on, then I'm sure the theory's there that you'll be able to exploit that. Alan, just going to come back to you. Sort of historically, I mean, Dunfermline, they have had a bit of a slow start to this league campaign. Do you think that's maybe a bit of sort of similar to what Rovers were like when they reached the playoff finals, and that you're maybe only getting 4 or 5 weeks in terms of the summer holiday and then coming back? Do you think that could potentially be one of the explanations for their return being so sort of almost passive?
Possibly. I mean, in terms of, they should be getting... Yeah, they've maybe not had as much of a break before they kind of coming in, but they should have had the same pre-season as everyone's had. There's that thing, obviously, when we got to the playoff final, it was, you don't know what division you're going to be in, so it's hard to do, you kind of do your business early, because if you bring in a bunch of guys for the championship and then suddenly find yourself promoted, you're then having to try and kind of go out and bring more in. So there's an element of that to it, but, they've not struggled to bring players in. They have, they've gone out there, they've brought guys in. There could just be an element of, as we've already touched on, there's an awful lot of guys playing they've not played together before, they've not played Scottish Championship football before. There's probably an element of teams thinking, right, these are throwing money about, we're going to show them that's not going to work in this league. There'll be all sorts of things. Hopefully, it's just that they're all pish.
Yeah,
that's that. I'd be very, very happy if that's the case. But there's the championship, as we've seen in our many years in it. It's a really, really tough league. Genuinely, any team can beat any other team. On the day, you've only got to look at Stenhousemuir. That 1-1 draw with Stenhousemuir is suddenly not looking as bad a result as it did at the time, and conversely, the win at Queen's Park's maybe not looking as good a result as it did at the time. It's just because you never tell. But it's just it's a really tough league. Most seasons you tend to have the kind of bigger team that's come down who have got enough quality that they will win most weeks, and you're not necessarily getting that many shocks from them. But I would argue Livingston are maybe not that this season. They're not like a Dundee United or even a St Johnstone that are going to come down and win most weeks. It's a really, really competitive league this year, and there are, teams are going to struggle. I think it was the BBC podcast I was listening to last week, and they were talking about the championship, and they were saying that, that every team in the league, Thistle might be everyone's favourite, but even they will have a period of, 3-4 games where they're maybe not winning them, not necessarily losing them all, but they're going to be dropping points, and folk are going to start thinking, is this their bad run. Every team's going to have a bad run. Hopefully, this isn't Dunfermline's only one, and hopefully it lasts a bit longer as well. But that's that.
I can hope it is their only one, and it just goes the whole season. That'd be great.
Well, that would be perfect.
I'd like that.
But I think too much can be read into a bad start. Don't get me wrong. I very much hope we add to it and find ourselves 8 points ahead of them. Come 10 o'clock on Friday night. But it's far too early, I think, to be thinking of them as a crisis club or anything like that. I don't doubt. There's a couple of weeks of the normal transfer window left, and then probably a few more weeks of the loan window as well after that. I have no doubt there'll be another few added into that team as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they send some of their younger guys out on loan as well. I don't know. I think they might have a co-op agreement with someone.
Yeah,
maybe Kelty or something. Stirling, is it? Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if they send some of these guys out as well.
How many loans are you allowed to have? I always forget this.
It's a mad number now because it changes based on where they're coming from. So I think it's 5 or 6, but that doesn't include cooperation loans, and it doesn't include loans from outside of Scotland.
Right, okay, so I was going to say, I think they're at 5 already, because they've got they've got Donnelly from Dundee, Cleel Harding from Dundee United, they've got the boy Lobbin from Aberdeen,
so they all
there's 3 in Scotland, but then they've got the boy for Derby and the boy for New England Revolution, so
I don't think they count because they're
international, like our cross-border loans. I think you can have as many as you want.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I mean, Alan mentions there about Dunfermline. I mean, if we win on Friday, we go 8 points ahead there, Blair. But Dunfermline, historically, I mean, the last couple of seasons, the home derbies for them, it's been a happy hunting ground for them. But a potential opportunity there for Rovers to maybe ramp up a degree of pressure, or do you think it's too early in the season to be talking about that nonsense?
Pressure, I think it's far too early. I love a derby, but I hate a derby, especially a derby at East End Park. Like I'll get excited about it all week, and then about 3:30 on Friday, I'll just get the fear, like the absolute abject fear will kick in. Like, what if this is the time that they absolutely trounce us? Is always there in the back of my head. But like, if you kind of go into this derby a little bit more kind of optimistic, you probably can't really ever go into a derby optimistic, because we're in pretty good form. They're not in very good form. We've got what appears to be a squad that, like their manager, they have a moron in charge. So
we're just getting personal now.
Yeah, totally. I can't stand them, eh? Like, it's bitter and twisted, but I just can't stand them. I don't think pressure will kick in. I think mainly because the excuses kind of, like I said earlier on, the excuses kind of write themselves. It's a squad full of new players and all the rest of it. I think the difference is probably the pressure that will come from their own fans. So I'm not too big a man to admit the fact that at 5 o'clock on Saturday, I went onto Twitter and I went onto the full-time score and the Dunfermline page, and I rejoiced in the replies, because that's how small and petty I am. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. But what I find quite amusing is the disparity between a lot of the comments. So, like, you'd go to one and it would be John Todd is mince, shouldn't be playing, he's terrible. Andy Todd is mince, shouldn't be playing. The next one, why does Andy Todd get taken off? He's the only striker that can score. And it's like, and you go through it and it's like, I feel like the fans don't even know what their best 11 is. Like, they can't quite figure out, with the number of players they've got, what their best one is. And I think that's maybe where the pressure will come in. More on the players and the manager in terms of squad rotation and in terms of nailing down an 11. Because you can only flip and flop for so long before everybody just loses their patience. Like, it's fine flipping and flopping if you're winning.
That's what I meant right at the start about it. It's the weight of expectation, I think, that's going to get them. Because from the outside, as I say, I think they're basically fine. Really.
Yeah.
What you said there, like, big squad, takes time to gel. different guys coming in and out. All this stuff is all perfectly legitimate. But when... Listen, not that I've got my finger on the pulse of the Dunfermline support by any means at all. Heaven forbid the thought. But I think when you have been a Dunfermline supporter for long enough and you've seen a lot of different Dunfermline teams, some of which have been good, some of which have been very funny, and then you see this team and you can see the amount of money that's gone into it. Again, nobody's kidding. That's not a line as a wind-up. Like, it's the most obvious thing in the world. I think you look at that and you go, well, hang on a second. We've had decent... I put myself in their mindset. And everything. You look at it and you go, like, there's been decent Dunfermline teams in the Championship, and they've not had anything like this kind of money thrown at them.
Yeah.
So they didn't really want to hear it's taking time to gel, all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, hang on a second. There's a lot of money being chucked about here. And if, reports are correct, quite a lot of it being chucked directly at Neil Lennon. And that's the thing is, I think it's, if we can score first, there could very well be a fairly, venomous atmosphere from the home end, which would be great. And just on the point there you said about not really looking forward to derbies, so I'm kind of the opposite to you. I find it much easier to look forward to an away derby than a home derby.
I'm just going to stop you there. That's fucking great, because that was my next question, Duncan. How are you feeling going into this derby?
I feel better than I would if it was a home derby, Robbie. But again, it's the same thing. It's the expectation that comes with it. I always feel that, like, with a home derby, like, your best case scenario is quite close to, like, there's not a huge amount of places for you to go. Whereas if you get beat, it's an absolute nightmare. Like, you can have, like, the worst day of your footballing life losing a derby at home, depending on how badly you lose it. Whereas away from home, there is always at least we were away from home, but you can do the opposite to them. Like, if you could win an away derby by a huge amount, it's even more of a hammer blow than winning a home one. Whereas if you get beat away, it's still not quite that bad. And as a pessimist, that's the bit that I focus on, where it's like, oh, see if we get beat, it's not that bad. Whereas if you get beat at home, it is. So, yeah, I don't enjoy the build-up to a home derby as much, because I'm like, oh God, what if the worst thing happens? It'll be so bad. But I mean, in terms of this one, actually, as you say, in the grand scheme of comparing different away derbies, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this for both sides. We've spoken a lot about Dunfermline, and I think why there is plenty of reason to not be, cowering in fear at the prospect of facing them. But also, the Rovers have been decent. I think I would stop short of saying anything beyond that, but also, like, they've not, the last couple of games they've not really had to be. Certainly on Saturday, I thought just held Ayr United at arm's length after we went 2-0 up. At Queen's Park, I think we were basically on the cusp of doing that when they got their goal, kind of out of nothing. But we were still, relatively comfortable seeing that through. So, as I say, I wouldn't go. I don't think I could sit here and say to you, the Rovers have been brilliant recently, with a straight face. But I do think they could be. Like, that's the thing, is I think the Rovers have been decent recently, with quite a lot of headroom to get better, and kind of reason to believe that they might. So,
that was one of the hallmarks of Dougie Emery's Morton sides. Just making up new people, new managers. They did have a sort of tendency, like, where they would go on these long unbeaten runs at points in the season. Usually it was sort of mid-season. Like, they would start poorly, long unbeaten run, end poorly. But just thinking over the last couple of years, you're absolutely right to say, like, we've not gone to East End Park in a sort of like even a more positive mood, just generally because of stuff behind the scenes. I mean, you think the last time that we were there, like we really looked like we were in toiling, we were really in trouble, and yeah, I mean, even before that, we had the first game of last season. We had Barry Robson in charge, and we'd just been beaten comprehensively off Ayr United, and then you're thinking, right, Derby's perfect time to bounce back. It was the complete opposite. It was like, oh, that's Robson cooked. Just took a few weeks later, and that was him gone. And then even the season before, I mean, you had Barry Robson and
you don't necessarily have to go into this in full detail.
Yeah, that's true. The point is,
I'm going to start
season under Ian Murray. That was fun. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, we'll hit that point eventually.
Did we not get to keep them after that?
I just loved the banner on the sort of, what was it, the West stand that's like the Rovers team lined up in the yellow shirts just at the end, and it's just got a winning team above it. Iconic, absolutely iconic. But yes, right, Alan. Just to come back to yourself, I mean, do you think this, like we were mentioning the previous derbies before, where it's been difficult, but is this an opportunity for Rovers to maybe go out, lay down a marker, and how important do you think it is that we're quick and imposing ourselves to this game on Friday?
I think we've got players playing well in key positions. You know, you've got Paul Hanlon coming back and looking like he's, you know, never been out of the game. You've got a keeper, you know, looking solid. You've got a really decent midfield with plenty of backup to come in as well. And in, you know, Dowds and Robertson and McMullen, you've got a front three who have come off a couple of really decent games. So we've got guys playing well all over the pitch and guys sitting on the bench desperate to come in and get their turn and do it. So it's all the recipe, it's all the kind of ingredients you want for going into a game like this. Guys who are playing well, who are really hungry, who kind of want to come in there, but then guys who are equally hungry, who are desperate for their chance. So you've got to think when guys like Tiffany and Easton come off the bench if they don't start on Friday, especially in front of the cameras as well. Dylan Easton loves the BBC cameras on a Friday night, so these guys are going to be coming in looking to really push to show Dougie Emery that they deserve a start the following week up in Inverness. So it's a really nice position to be in. They should be very confident. I don't think it's going to come into anyone's mind in our squad what Dunfermline have done and how they will be, because it's a derby. They're at home. There'll be a big crowd there. That's all. They can only go and control what they can control, and that's how they perform. And derbies last season, particularly away from home, we just seemed really flat. Like it didn't feel like we were playing a derby. We never really laid a glove on them at East End Park. We just, we let Chris Kane score a bloody hat-trick against us, or maybe in the season before, to be fair, but they all kind of merge into one these games at East End Park, don't they? So it's just, I don't see us approaching the game in the same just really poor way we did last season. So I think whatever happens, I think it's going to be a really tight, closely fought game, but I just don't see us getting kind of blown away the way we have in the past. You kind of feel like there's a bit more about this Rovers team now. Now that Dougie Emery's been in there, what, nine months, something like that. He's really kind of getting his message across. Him and Andy Millen are kind of, and they've got really good characters in the squad as well, I think, which absolutely helps. And then if the reporting was right, and you can even throw George Oakley into the mix as well, albeit he's never going to be starting. But if you give yourself another option on the bench and just a bit more strength and more kind of ways to change the game later on, it's all adding up to. I don't like being confident. I am quite a positive guy about the Rovers in general. I'm only half joking in our group chat when I'm talking about saying to Ian, "Didn't worry about booking holidays for the playoffs because we're going to win the title." You know, that's it's only half a joke there, but yeah, it's just there's a lot to be optimistic about going into this game on Friday. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that doesn't mean it'll be easy, of course, but.
Nah, I get where you're coming from. I wouldn't even say it's sort of half joking as well. It's probably quarter joking we're at the moment. But yeah, I think that you mentioned George Oakley there, and I think that'll be quite an important return for us because we're so light on the ground up top in the sense of out and out forwards. So to be able to have him coming back into training now, and hopefully he can get back to sort of match fitness soon enough, because you could really see it towards the end of the games. I mean, we've commented on it before, but Anton Dowds is obviously he's getting fitter and fitter, but at the same time, like,
he's playing
you want
90
that
minutes
option.
every week.
You want that option to be able to have off the bench to sort of like
Totally.
70 minutes into a game to be able to change it. Blair, I'll just stick with yourself. Dougie Emery he's been very busy in the Courier. We've had a lot of Courier articles this week with references from Dougie Emery. And he was in the press today.
Talking about how much you like Simo Valakari's beer, or?
Not quite. We'll need to get a Dougie Emery IPA made if we end up doing anything this season. But yeah, he was touting Kai Montague and saying Callum Adamson as well, potentially for sort of Scotland youth options with Tony Docherty becoming the under-21 manager. How important do you think it is that we've got that sort of youthful enthusiasm from these players potentially there on Derby Day? So, I mean, there's going to be limited exposure to a game of that magnitude for the two players, but they can offer something to the team.
I'm not sure it will be limited exposure, actually. I think that there are two names that might be kind of first in the team sheet. In terms of the youth thing, I think it's probably quite important that we have it, and especially in the middle of the park. I mean, we're talking about Dunfermline having this 28-man squad or whatever, but I think the average age is only like 23 or 24 or something. It's young. They've got a lot of youth in there, and we don't. Like, we're younger than we were last season, but we're still, I think our average age is still up about 27 or 28 possibly. And that has a part to play in injuries. It has a part to play in just overall fitness, pace, the kind of stamina that going into the kind of latter stages of a game. But I always think it's one of those things, like, and it's such a cliche, but all of that kind of goes out the window on a Derby Day anyway, because it's just it becomes a bit more of a lottery. Form goes out the window, and kind of results in the previous 2 or 3 games can go out the window. But I think the youth thing for us, they're two very different players in that regard, though, because you've got in Kai Montague a guy who, for all the world, can run, and he covers every blade of grass, and he's high energy and high tempo, and he's far better playing in that sort of 10 further forward, and kind of being in support. And actually, I'm quite impressed. As of the last few weeks, he's starting to have shots from distance and stuff, which is good. Kind of need more of that kind of coming into his game. And then in Adamson, you've got a really different type of player, somebody who can kind of, again, cover every blade of grass and do that whole thing, but just probably a little bit more composed on the ball, a little bit tidier with the ball at his feet, which is, I don't think, a slight on Kai Montague at all, because I think Adamson's incredibly tidy on the ball. But we're going to be up against, probably, you would imagine, likes of Amadi. I mean, I don't know whether he'll bring Gilmore back in. He's not really been kind of featuring too heavily, but it's not an overly old Dunfermline squad. So having a bit of youth in there to kind of mix it is not a bad thing. Especially, as I say, when you've got Kai Montague in the form that he's in, and Adamson having come in and made the start that he has. I mean, this time last season, you had a bit in your hand off for the opportunity in that kind of first derby that we went there with Robson to have players in that kind of form and carrying the game the way that they're doing at the moment. So you can really only go with what you've got. But yeah, it's a positive thing.
Duncan, just to come back to yourself, so if we will look back to the game against Stenhousemuir in terms of where, or the game against Ayr even, of when when we started the lineup. So we had Zach Delaney and J Rowe as our fullbacks going at that game. Who would you be looking at going into this one? Do you think is it a chance to maybe change up the personnel, or would you be keeping it exactly the same? What would be your thoughts on that one? Firstly, if you were in charge, and then secondly, what do you think Dougie Emery will actually do?
I hadn't really thought about what I want. I would
come away from the mindset of a Dunfermline fan.
Yeah, no, I've been just trying to shake that thought out one of my lugs for the last 15 minutes. I would be inclined to leave it as it is. I think. I might change my mind on that in the next 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop trying to think on my feet. I'm not very good at it. I think, Dougie Emery, what I think we will learn here is an awful lot about his approach to squad management this season. Because there's two possibilities that I don't think we've had a chance to see yet, which it's going to be. Which is either it's your jersey to keep until such time as you make a mistake that causes you to lose it, or he has specific players in mind for specific circumstances and is willing to swap guys in and out. And as right now, I honestly don't know which it is. But I think you could probably group the first 3 games together relatively easily, given that 2 of them are at home, Queen's Park, not one of the more sort of fancied sides. But that going away to East End Park probably is in a different category, the same as you would have going to Firhill, going to Almond Vale, where certainly you could make a case for, you know what, at left back I would rather have the experience of Lewis Stevenson. At right back I would rather have the experience of Ross Millen. The other one is in the midfield. You could certainly make a case to bring Scott Brown in. Probably Adamson, who comes out for that. You could argue Charlie Telfer, but probably I think it's Adamson. The temptation, certainly, I think, to bring Brown in must be fairly significant. My best guess, if I was putting money on it, I think he'll put out the same team again.
Yeah.
But, as I say, that is guesswork, because it might well be that he said to Lewis Stevenson a fortnight ago, some games I'm going to use you, some games I'm not. These are the kind of games I'm going to use you. So Stevenson then comes back in. I really think it's a very good problem to have. That is one thing. What you've got is, Delaney played so well on Saturday. And like Alan said before, when we were sort of totting up the signings before anybody had kicked a ball, I don't think it's unfair to say that Zach Delaney was probably towards the bottom end of that list. And he was towards the bottom end of that list, firmly labelled backup left back.
Yeah.
And if he starts on Friday night, is anybody disgruntled? I don't think so. I think you'd be like, some people might prefer Lewis Stevenson, but nobody's kicking and screaming if it's Delaney. And is he actually on balance? I think I'd probably start him. And it's the same on the other side. What actually... There's a few positions where I think you could make a very justifiable case for other guys to come in, which, given we won our last game at a canter, is pretty positive. It's not to just very quickly, again, shine a light on the other side. You've got Dunfermline sort of complaining about the fact they're not scoring enough goals, and they've got 5 strikers.
And it's like Neil Lennon wants to sign.
And Neil Lennon's in the paper saying he wants another one. So you end up with 2 problems there. You end up with, if anything, you're kind of chopping and changing too much because you're trying to find a solution that works. And every time you do that, so you swap one guy out and you swap another guy in, there's 3 guys going, well, I should have been the one getting swapped. So I don't think there's anybody in that Rovers side who's sort of disgruntled because they're on the fringe. I don't think anybody's on the fringe. Everybody who was on the bench on Saturday has a door to knock on. They've got one target to say, right, I need to outperform that guy in training this week. And again, if they have done and they start, because again, you look at the bench, like Kyle Turner, he's just come back from injury. He's probably the furthest one away from getting a start. Kyle Turner, we all like Kyle Turner. Kyle Turner's great. It's like, again, like George Oakley will come in, and again, coming back off an injury. And if he gets 10 minutes, everybody will be absolutely delighted. It's a very, very, it's a nice place to be, put it that way. And then, like, whatever happens will happen. The similar thing, actually, I think you can say for Dougie Imrie. I've got no desire to spend any time at all on Barry Robson. But the approach he took to that derby that he managed, to use the term loosely, at East End Park, is so far below the standard I think Dougie Imrie could even reach if he tried. Like, his sort of basement of performance is significantly higher than that kind of mess that Robson tried to put out. And again, that's no guarantee that we'll win the game. Like, you know, he might come up with a plan, a very specific strategy that doesn't come off at all. There's absolutely, that could well happen. But there will be a level of sort of cohesion and purpose and thinking behind it that at least you can be confident right now that, you know, the Rovers will go and they'll have a decent go at it. And who knows, maybe we'll get a player sent off 5 minutes in and get beat at a counter. It might happen. But there's no reason, as we sit here right now, to have any kind of negative mindset going into it.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, certainly with it, like, we've had a very positive first few games. I think it'll be a huge opportunity for us as a team to sort of, for Rovers to lay down a marker and to sort of say, because I think before this point, I know that we kind of mentioned it before, certainly I have, in terms of like going into the season, people had automatically almost like established their top four, and it was just kind of like the big question was possibly about Ayr, and sort of saying like they're probably going to finish fourth, but like the top three is pretty much certain. But then we've seen last season already, previously before, like there's no guarantees. Like Ross County spent by far and away the biggest budget last season and end up getting relegated. So it's football can be a funny thing, and I think that like going into these games, probably as fans we overthink it and overlook it, but there's every reason that we can go in, and I think that we've got a well-rounded squad in the sense that we've got the options, like you say, for, I mean, you think about guys like Scott Tiffany and things like that. Like, he's scored against Rangers before in the top flight a couple of seasons ago, was it? Like, it's just another game in terms of that respect.
He's actually one for me. I wouldn't be surprised to see Scott Tiffany starting. I think the only place, I agree with everything Duncan said there, like in terms of the team, everybody justifies kind of started the previous game, and I think Delaney's in particular, I think he would feel quite hard done by actually if he got dropped for Stevenson. The right hand side I'm probably less sold on, more from the point of view that the only player I think I can guarantee is going to start for Dunfermline is Robbie Fraser, who I still think is their best player.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Like coming down that left hand side, our right hand side, it does worry me a little bit that it's Robertson and Rowe. That two with Fraser and AN other in front of him, and the fact that they've been playing this kind of 3-4-3, so you're probably going to have like an Andy Todd or whatever off to the kind of left as well. There's a fair bit of pace there, but it's I don't know, I just feel like there's maybe not enough defensive clout there for my liking. So whether that be McMillan goes back to the right hand side, I'm all over the place, whether McMillan goes back to the right hand side, or whether you end up with a Tiffany on the right hand side, or whether it's Ross Millen coming in for Rowe, I don't think that combination of two for me works. Would probably be the only bit I would be looking at as someone that I'd like Dougie Imrie to to change just to try and nullify that kind of threat from deep from Robbie Fraser.
See, I do think this would be I think Fraser against Robertson, I think Robertson would be good in the sense that you're certain that he'd be on the front foot. Like
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd be keen to see that. I mean, you look at the way that Livingston played last weekend, and they had Jordan Doherty seemed to be pushed up really far up. Like a lot of his involvement in the game, based on the highlights, that seems to be quite far up the pitch. So, yeah, just really intriguing fixture for us to be going into and to see how our squad handles what should be it'll be a tough test, but it's a winnable game. Like, I don't think anyone's going to go into this one and sort of shy away from it. Any final thoughts going into this one, lads?
Fuck the Pars.
Sounds good to me. Right,
looking
Duncan,
forward to John Robertson repeating Ross Millen's wee thingy in front of the Northwest guys.
Or even Ross Millen doing it. I'm alright with that.
Well, anyway, the whole team. Ian Murray will appear for nowhere.
If John Robertson scores, John Robertson can celebrate however he wants. I'm just going to be quite happy to just see him fire one in the back of the net and get off the goal trail for us. Duncan, you prepared a should McStay or should Argo for us, I believe.
Sure have. Let me just grab my cue cards here. Right, I'll give you've got a guest lined up. Do you want to give your guess first? Just so you can get the kudos in advance.
Damien Castelnuovo.
This is my poker face.
I like it. It's good.
The benefit of the audio listener. Right, okay. Clue number 1. I share my name with a death row inmate who was executed by the state of Texas in 2024.
Don Castelnuovo.
Texas. Doesn't he narrow it down with Texas, to be honest? But...
Is there a state there? Is there did the state of Tennessee execute a John Baird or a...
Ramon Pereira.
Alan, do you care to venture a guess?
For no reason other than it's just the name of a guy who has played for Rovers, Laurie Ellis. And it's just good to hear the name, yeah.
We need a list of every single, like Tex Rover needs to add that into the list of should McStay or should Dargo, like entries that we've had, just underneath a list of every time Blair says, it's just good to hear his name.
I thought you were saying a list of people that the US had executed.
Well, I mean, that could also be...
This is going to get fairly grim fairly quickly. Laurie Ellis does sound like, not to spoil anything, does sound like the subject of a Netflix documentary called,
Lovely Footballer? The human being?
Yeah, let's go with that. I'll not finish that sentence.
Yeah.
Right, I'll give you number 2. I played 24 league games for Raith Rovers.
Not Laurie Ellis.
24 games.
I'm gonna stick with Ramon Pereira because what was he, 1 season with us?
I'm not going to answer any of these questions because I find that it's really tempting to do it, but it's very obvious if I answer it whether or not that's who it is.
I'm just trying to think of names that potentially could be death row inmates as well, which are really dark hole to go down. Right, so you're sticking with Ramon Pereira. Where are you sticking or twisting? No, I'm not sticking with Casa. He played more than 24 games. 24 games to me sounds like a loan almost.
I don't even know if Casa would have played 24 games. I feel like he only played about a dozen games for us.
2 spells?
Aye, but it was only... but one was only about 4 games and the other was half a season. Yeah. And it was even then... Even then he was still up top with coming in as a sub with John Baird and Brian Graham. So
Yeah, I'll stick with
it's a rare one of not dismissing a clue. It's actually trying to support a hypothesis with this one. Like,
yeah.
it's a rare thing for Shabix there, should Daggle.
Alan, sorry, did you?
It's absolutely not worrying us, but I will stick with it just for the purpose of getting the game moving.
Fair enough. Quite a memorable 24 games for Laurie Ellis. Achieved a fair bit.
And his 5 spells.
You did 300. You did say 324, didn't you?
24 to the power of 6. Right, clue number 3. I was hoping this would be like a little sort of twist, and it's not for, I think, any of the ones you mentioned. After I retired, I turned my hand to designing sportswear.
No,
I think quite famously we know what Damien Castellanovo's
Casa became an
career is,
accountant.
do we not?
he was an
Argentina.
accountant, yeah. That does ring a bell, though. Sportswear.
This was, I have to tell you, my fear with this clue was that somebody would just know it. It is one of those where it's like...
Aye.
This, by the way, was a thing I found out about 6 months ago, and I have not been able to write... Yeah, I've not been around to write a Should We Stay or Should I Go since. I've been dying to do it.
Like, he's made a career of it, hasn't he? I'm sure we've spoken about this at some point. God, it's really annoying.
Any further advances?
Joaquin Bornes. I guess it's right, though. He's a politician, I think.
I'm going to change it up, and I don't know, like, no idea, but Gordon Smith.
Oh.
I just don't feel like, I mean, he's played that, obviously didn't play that many games with us, could translate into the inmate. No idea what he's up to nowadays, like, he could be creating sportswear for all we know.
Alan, you sticking with what else?
Yeah, just because brain not working properly this evening.
Yeah,
just
plenty of time to
just try
sketch out his
think,
designs.
Just try to think of players who might have played 24 games, and it's like should be plenty of options, and just at the moment none of them are coming to me.
Right, clue number 4. I also played for Montrose, Ross County, and Airdrie, among others.
Oh, sugar.
Montrose, Ross County,
Robbie
and
does.
Airdrie.
Oh,
Only
man.
about 5 minutes.
I can actually picture him, and if I say his position, you're going to know exactly who it is, and I can't think of his name.
If you're stuck, I can give you a 4th team he played for.
Go on.
Shalkanoras Edaliu.
Well pronounced.
That help?
Oh, aye, it's his name. Yeah.
Oh, right.
One of many.
Gonzalez,
Ramiro.
the goalie. Ramiro Gonzalez, thank you. I could not think of his name.
Okay. Any alternatives?
Nah, I think that sounds like a good shout. I want to hear any further clues, but I think that...
Clue number 5. My Wikipedia page specifically states, in 2000 he signed for Airdrieonians in the Scottish Championship, where he made 8 league appearances and scored 0 goals. Which is an odd thing to say, because I never scored any goals for any of my clubs.
Again,
Yes, as a goalie.
figure with Ramiro.
Yeah.
And I thought if you hadn't got it by this point, you would want an era clue. So it was. Number 6, I was brought to the Rovers by Antonio Calderon.
Well done, Blair.
Very well done.
That sportswear thing, I have a funny feeling we've spoken about that before at some point.
He owns and operates RG Gloves out of both Argentina and Cyprus, which is where that
Yes.
football club whose name I'd forgotten comes from. Schalke Adalu. If you go on the website, I would thoroughly recommend you do go on the website, by the way. It's rggloves.com, partly because Ramiro Gonzalez, very, very handsome man. And there's lots of photos of him. And in addition to photos of him, you know, sometimes when you see goalies training, they've got big, like, inflatables. They look like those things you get off, like, It's a Knockout. So that you can do, like, you can bend a free kick around them or this kind of stuff. You can buy those with Ramiro Gonzalez's face on them.
Oh, wow. Ramiro Gonzalez has aged well.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Good looking fella. Now I say head to the shop and you can get yourself a training dummy.
Yeah, if you just use discount code Duncan25, then you get.
Well, you get 25%.
Actually, that's not Ramiro Gonzalez, is it?
Yes, it is. Oh, believe me, I have spent a fair bit of time looking at that website. That is him.
That's incredible.
€200, by the way, if you want an inflatable Ramiro Gonzalez to bend free kicks around.
If it looks like that, I'd bet.
My Google predictive search has just brought me up to. It started off Ramiro Gonzalez and then just completed Texas Execution, which I'm almost certain my girlfriend has watched a Netflix documentary about at some point.
Well, that was exactly where that clue came from when I was Googling him earlier on today. It's like, that'll do. But
I just assumed you were going to do the Dunfermline link, and I was thinking it would be a game, because every time I think of East End Park, I think of Damien Castellanovo scoring that goal and running into that stand.
It would have been a good one. I know that obviously goalkeepers and particularly goalkeeping coaches, I'm sure, are very particular about whose equipment they use, but it seems like it would be a nice little link if John Connolly wanted to get a load of Ramiro Gonzalez gloves. I think the less we say about what Ramiro Gonzalez did while wearing gloves with us, probably the less the better. I think doing keepy uppies on the edge of his own box as he was being chased down by a striker, probably the...
He really has aged well, though. Jesus.
Well, that'll round us off for this evening. We're all off to admire Ramiro Gonzalez some more.
For a cold shower.
That'll be it. Thank you, as ever, for taking the time to listen. Thank you, Duncan, for the should mix there, should I go? And
you're very welcome,
Blair,
everybody,
for jumping on for the podcast. We'll be back, no doubt, at some point during the weekend, depending on the result. It may vary as the timing of when that episode comes out, but don't worry, we won't run away from it if it's a poor result. Rest assured, if it is a good result, we will no doubt be back on Saturday morning at some point with a list of about 15 people waiting to join in. But until then, thank you for taking the time.
Two-parter.
Exactly. And of course, as ever, bye for now.